At Wembley Arena tonight, a big expectant crowd and a genuine boxing occasion, the kind of British heavyweight night that comes once every 20 years. The biggest night since Cooper and Bugner, they're calling it, and tonight we've got two British heavyweights putting their careers, their reputations and their futures right on the line. Tonight, live, it's Gary Mason against Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis, the European champion and the Olympic champion. Gary Mason, British champion, 35 wins out of 35. For both men, serious preparations took them to the USA. Lewis to the sunshine of California. Mason to the big fight atmosphere of Florida and New York. Mason, the big man who's won 32 times inside the distance.
Oh, what a right uppercut. Lifted him off his feet like Foreman did with Frazier. Oh, he's got him with a right hand.
Lennox Lewis, outstanding as an amateur, Olympic champion in 1988, beating the highly rated Riddick Bowe.
Again, Lewis is very close to the gold medal. And Lennox Lewis of Canada is the gold medalist.
Only 14 fights as a professional, but he's been impressive. The weigh-in today, Gary Mason looking fit and much lighter than recent years.
16 stone, 11 pounds. Gary Mason.
Because while I was an active Lennox Lewis, every time he was on the television, he was jumping up, I want Gary Mason, he's got something I want. Well, Lennox, let me tell you something, I've got something I want to give you.
And Lennox Lewis coming in 8 pounds lighter at what he considers his ideal weight.
16 stone, 3 pounds. Lennox Lewis.
When I get really mad, I just look at this picture and see a smile on Mason's face, holding up the belt. Well, I'm going to wipe that smile off his face and take away that belt, because that belt's mine.
Two unbeaten men with an awful lot to lose tonight, and as you can see, the bookmakers can hardly separate them. Mason slightly the favourite. Well, with me is Glenn McCrory, the former world cruiserweight champion turned heavyweight challenger. What's going to happen tonight?
Well, I think it's going to be a great fight, but I think Lewis has the advantage in physical capabilities, so I fancy Lewis probably to win round about the middle rounds by a stoppage and knockout.
Lewis for you, we shall see. The big fight just moments away. It's quite a heavyweight night we've got for you, because apart from Mason Lewis, we're also looking back 20 years ago this week at one of the greatest contests of all time. Muhammad Ali against Joe Frazier at Madison Square Garden. Extraordinary fight. Amazing build-up.
I'm glad you can sing and have a band for hire, because after this fight you must retire.
When you come down to punch me, I got something for you.
Okay, let's quit all the talking. I'm gonna give the man the thing, because I'm out to get you.
Yeah, I see you, chump. Be good, chump.
The hype was very much justified, as you'll see later. There will be time for other sport tonight, in particular a look ahead to the new Formula One season. We're talking to Nigel Mansell and the world champion Ayrton Senna. But the business in hand is right here at Wembley. Gary Mason against Lennox Lewis. At ringside, Frank Bruno is a very interested spectator, and he's alongside Harry Carpenter.
Well, it is an interesting fight. It is a genuine fight. It has international significance. And on paper, it looks very close indeed. It's a difficult one to forecast, but I've got right beside me, as you know, the man who might be able to give us a tip. Who do you fancy, Frank?
So, Harry, I couldn't really put a good tip on, you know what I mean? Because everybody's been talking, everybody's been arguing, and there's been some sort of like back-chatting between both of them, you know? This is the place and this is the time for both of them to prove themselves. I couldn't put my finger on a definite winner. I just got to wait and see, Harry.
You're like everybody else. That's what everybody's saying. Nobody wants to name a winner.
Heavyweights, you never can tell. Just one punch, Harry.
No, it's going to be a good fight. It's time now for the men to make their way to the ring, and the first to come will be the British champion, Gary Mason. came looking solemn, but cool and certainly composed. And so he waits now for the European champion, the man born in London and raised in Canada, and now back with us, Lennox Lewis. Well, let's have a look at the statistics for the two men. Gary Mason, 3 years older, 8 pounds heavier, but conceding quite a lot of height, as you can see, and certainly a lot of reach. But he's the man with far more professional experience. All Lewis's great experience happened when he was an amateur. But both men rank pretty high in the world today. The WBC ratings, the World Boxing Council. These are the current ratings, the champion Evander Holyfield, of course. And then you see Gary Mason, the 5th rated contender, and Lewis, the 11th ranked contender. Well, a lot of stars in the audience tonight, and right down there at the front, Gary Lineker from the Spurs. Keen boxing fan, I'm told.
Our gentlemen, please. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the main event on this evening's promotion. National Promotions present a heavyweight contest of 12 3-minute rounds for the heavyweight championship of Great Britain and Europe. Presenting and introducing in this corner, ladies and gentlemen, from Crayford, the heavyweight champion of Europe, Lennox Lewis. And from Wandsworth, ladies and gentlemen, the heavyweight champion of Great Britain, Gary Mason. At the weigh-in at the Odeon West End today, Lewis scaled 16 stones 3 pounds, Mason 16 stones 11 pounds. And the officials for this contest, ladies and gentlemen, judges Mr. Mickey Van and Mr. John Coyle, the referee Mr. Larry O'Connell, the timekeeper is Mr. Tom Rice, and the supervisor in charge, Mr. John Morris.
Larry O'Connell refereeing tonight and brings the two men together. Mason already been slightly aggressive in the preliminaries, advancing twice towards the corner of Lewis. And nobody's quite sure how the early running will go. Who's going to make the pace? 12 rounds, British and European titles at stake, and world ranking very much at stake. Lennox Lewis in black. He has the reach. He should be able to keep Mason away from him if he uses the left hand properly. And that presumably will be the tactic. Not clear who has the heavier punch. Mason going in with his head down. And told off. Lewis the faster of the two men. Neat little right uppercut from Lewis, and Lewis getting the early accurate punches in. Now Lewis, caution for holding. Of the two men, Mason looks the more tense. Lewis pulling Mason onto him, trying to get him close to him where Mason can't exert any leverage. And again, a ticking off. All of Mason's danger lies in big swinging punches, but he needs to be a little bit away from Lewis to get him swinging. It's a promising start. Lewis well covered up with his arms in close as Mason tries to find his body. Lewis takes him on the arms. That's a beautiful right uppercut from Lewis as Mason advanced, wide open to it. No question at the moment, Lewis has scored all the early points. It's disturbing, I think, from Mason's point of view, how easy Lewis finds him with the right hand. Well, that was a very interesting opening round. And Mason made a very slow start, and he found himself outboxed. But towards the end of the round, he got a good dig in and slightly restored things. But he was caught very easily indeed with a lot of right hands. He was always, of course, at the end of the left jab, as one expected he would be. But the superior boxing skill and the speed of Lewis certainly won the early points until Mason just towards the end turned it around slightly. And Lennox Lewis, this handsome young man, born in Forest Gate in East London and emigrated to Canada when he was 9 years old with his parents, and was brought up in Canada, all his early boxing there, and won the Olympic gold medal boxing for Canada in 1988.
Harry, I think both of them were hurt in that round, you know? Very, very hurt.
This is scheduled for 12 rounds. And again, the snaking left hand of Lewis finds its way very easily into the face of Gary Mason. Well, they haven't wasted any time warming up. That's a good thump from Mason into the ribs of Lewis. That's the sort of punch that will slow him down if enough of them get through. Mason looking just slightly marked around the eyes. He's taken a few left hands. There's Mickey Duff, the manager of Mason, looking slightly anxious. Seeing his man boxed at long range, getting picked off. Lewis has looked the much more relaxed of the two so far. The superior speed and reach is telling at the moment. Mason's going to put his faith here in getting close enough and really go for one hell of a haymaker. quite solid jabs. That's a bit of right hand from Mason, and that gave Lennox Lewis something to think about. He lowered his arms, he shrugged his shoulders, and I think he was a wee bit hurt. Low punch. That's a better jab from Mason. Similar pattern to the first round. Let's have a word from Frank Bruno.
Yes,
now.
Harry,
How do you feel about those 2 rounds?
It's very, very tight 2 rounds for Gary, because Gary's usually trying to use the bombs all the time. Lennox is silky using his jab, and Gary don't need them sort of like jabs in his face all the time, because he'll get very, very cut. But I'm very impressed by Lennox Lewis, because Gary was saying a lot of things, and a lot of people were saying he wasn't ready, but he looks very, very ready to me. He's very, very confident there.
This is the right hand that Gary landed. But I think shook Lewis up quite a bit here.
Yeah.
Here it comes, that one. That was a good punch.
Very good punch. I think the first round he got shook more than that round, Harry, you know? But both of them are hungry and want it, so it's going to deep down to who wants it more, Harry. Heart, you know?
Do you agree with me that Lewis looks the more relaxed of the 2 at the moment?
Much more. Gary looks very, very tense, and I think the last fight he had with Pritchard, he hurt his right hand, so he's not using it to the full force, Harry.
Round 3.
Mason, of course, last year had serious eye problems and spent some months not knowing whether he'd ever be able to box again. "20 years ago, this very month, that Henry Cooper and Joe Bugner fought in the same ring, the last fight of Cooper's career. Lewis not moving quite so smoothly now as he was at the start, and Mason's right hand beginning to get through a little more often. Mason's right eye is looking a little suspect. He's got a slight swelling coming up underneath the right eye, and maybe even the start of a swelling under the left as well, and that's obviously the effects of Lewis's left jab. Mason's right eye is beginning to close. That's a good left jab again from Lewis. And Lewis, for all the talk about his lack of experience as a pro, is certainly fighting coolly enough here, but he's hurt again by a right hand, but comes instantly back. This is going to be no 12-rounder. Lewis takes a deep breath. He's beginning to puff a bit already. And the arms coming down and looking very ragged. Almost as though...
His eye is very cut,
and Mason's right eye looking worse by the moment. And cut now, there's blood around the right eye. Mason's right eye is seriously hurt. Lewis drops his arms again as Mason's right hand thunders into his head. Mason now, perhaps living on borrowed time. He needs a quick win because that eye is shutting at an alarming rate. Mason needs a KO blow here. Lewis standing there taking these punches, not entirely guarded against them either. And the bell stops the Mason onslaught, and the two of them have attacked each other. They turned, and there was an aggressive move on either side, and Larry O'Connell had to step in pretty quickly there. So there's bad feeling now crept into this fight, which is a pity. And Mason's right eye is in a seriously bad way, and Denny Mancini is the man working on it, trying to get the swelling down. And Larry O'Connell moved into the corner and had a word with Mickey Duff. Cool him down, he said. Let's have a look at some action from that third round, because a lot of damage was done to Mason's right eye, and that's the sort of punch that did it. And again, the left jab going right through to that side of the face. Well, this fight has lived up to all the publicity. And one felt towards the end of the fourth that Lewis was beginning to lose his grip on it. Lewis has such a reach advantage here and so much mobility that he really doesn't need to allow Mason to get close to him. It's almost impossible to get a swelling like this down, and they haven't succeeded. Mason is very close to looking out of just one eye. There is very bad feeling between these two now. There's a bit of taunting going on. Coming at that point from Lewis. And not surprisingly, there's an air of urgency. I won't say desperation, but certainly urgency about Mason's work, because he knows better than all of us that his time may be short in this fight. Lennox, Lewis motioning Mason to come on. I wish he'd get on with the job and concentrate on it instead of doing the needling. He's got enough on his plate with Mason in front of him. Mason now the man who's picking the other man off. Pace is slowed down considerably. These are two very big men, 16-3 and 16-11. And they can't keep up a fast pace for too long. And that was a better round for Mason. In fact, Lewis spent most of the time needling Mason and not doing too much work. Would you agree with that, Frank?
Yeah, you could say that again. Gary's got to go for the knockout punch, Harry, because that eye won't last to the 12th round, you know. And Lewis is just jabbing him all the time, and all he's got to do is run, and he's won the fight. But that eye is very, very, very serious, Harry, you know what I mean? And, like, I don't think it will go on more than 3 rounds. If they do, it'd be a miracle. It's a very, very interesting fight. I thought Gary, at the start of it, he was in favour, you know what I mean, on paper, with experience in that, but Lennox has come in much more cooler. But he's tiring as well, Lennox.
Yes,
Lewis,
he is.
you know?
He's tired early, actually,
Yeah, very, very early, you know. I think with the pressure and the tension, this is a big fight for him, you know? Back and forth from different countries and that. But it's a very intriguing fight, Harry.
Right. So there's no telling, really, at the moment, which way it might swing.
I think you've got to go for Lennox Lewis, because as long as he stays out the way, keeps on touching up Gary's face with his left jab, you know, into that eye, I don't think that'll last much longer. If Gary can get up in with his big swings, but he's looking slow himself, Harry.
Goes to work immediately with a big right. Didn't really concentrate on his work too well in the fourth, and maybe they've told him about it, and he's come out looking a little more efficient. These two are splitting £276,000 tonight, equally. Both champions. Had one been the champion, the other just the challenger, then it would have been split 60-40. Lewis's mouth looks quite marked. He's boxed open-mouthed all the way through, and the lower lip's beginning to look as though it's injured. And Mason trying to peer through this swollen eye, showing a lot of courage here, coming forward and trying his best here to get rid of the younger man. Lewis not really using his advantages again, not using his feet. He's standing within range of Mason's big punches. Earlier on, he was either circling away, well out of reach, or else coming in very close and claiming Mason. This is really becoming quite a brutal fight. Neither man has found the one really big punch that could turn the fight. All those are going through to the head of Lewis. He shrugs his shoulders again, he smiles. Lewis seems to have made up his mind that he can take any punch Mason cares to throw. Lewis's arm's coming down again. He's clearly tired. And there's a long, long way to go, providing Gary Mason can keep seeing out of the right eye. Actually, it doesn't look quite as bad now as it did before. The corner had done a good job on it. Lewis unmarked, as far as we know. 25 years old, brought up in Kitchener, Ontario. And meanwhile, in the other corner, Denny Mancini, still working as hard as he knows to try to ease the swelling down, to get the eye open again. Larry O'Connell's in there having another look. Mason did a lot of good work in that last round, and Lennox Lewis allowed him to get this close where he could work and get some leverage.
10 seconds.
And Larry O'Connell's had a long talk with Mickey Duff in this corner, and I think he may be saying something to him, like we'll give him another round and see how he goes, because Mr. O'Connell clearly has to watch that eye very, very carefully, particularly in view of the trouble Mason has had with retina problems. Mr. O'Connell keeping himself quite cool, but he's having to work hard to keep this contest under control. The piercing left jab again, spearing its way into the battered face of Mason. And a good short, sharp right from Lewis. And Mason had better find a knockout punch pretty quickly. Lewis not working too hard. The pair of them now looking pretty weary, and it's hardly surprising the way they've been at each other now for nearly 6 rounds. And Mason had to back off and stop attacking because of the punches coming his way. He tries again to force his way inside. But I wonder if I sense a touch of despair in Mason's work now. And again, he's picked off with sharp, piercing, cutting punches. The left jab of Lewis has been the key punch. And Mason's beginning to take too many punches in that battered face. Mason's right eye is now certainly totally shut. Larry O'Connell had a good close look at it there, and I think he's going to have to make his mind up pretty shortly whether he allows this to go on. And Mason's got some blood on the left eye now as well. I'm not sure that he's cut there, but there's certainly some blood, and Mason breaks off and looks a woeful and dispirited and weary figure as he goes back to the corner. And he is cut on the left eye as well. He's got too much damage now. And Mr. O'Connell is marking his card, but he's going to walk into that corner in a moment and give himself a close-up of these injuries. Is he going to let Mason continue? These are the Lennox Lewis jabs, which have wreaked havoc in the face of Mason. And really did more damage in that round, perhaps, than they've done at any other time. Mr. O'Connell has walked to the corner and walked away again. So he's coming out for this round.
Not much longer, Harry.
Round 7.
Mason looks like a man working in slow motion now. I don't know how long his courage can sustain him here. He's taking too much and he's badly hurt. He screwed his face up in pain, and I really do think this is going to have to be brought to an end in a minute. But Mason is having one last desperate go in round 7. He's putting everything into a do-or-die effort. And it's called off. That was the last fling for Gary Mason. And the sympathetic O'Connell puts his hands round the battered head of Mason and says, "You're not going to take any more, son." And that's right enough. And so Lennox Lewis is being joyously proclaimed now the British and European champion. He marks up his 15th successive professional win. He's proved himself the better man on this night. And in the other corner, a battered, bewildered, and totally downcast Gary Mason, who gave his best, and towards the end he gave his all, but the damage was just too great to bear. That was the start of the trouble, a big right hand near the beginning of this 7th round. And there was one punch here that went right was the one, and that was really the end of Gary. He screwed his face up in pain, and it really might have been stopped there. But Mason had one more tremendous fling to try to bring it to an end. But it was all too much for him. And so, the great battle has been resolved
The referee has stopped the contest
in the 7th round.
The new heavyweight champion of Great Britain and Europe, Lennox Lewis.
And as we come back live to the ring, so Lennox Lewis is being proclaimed the British and European champion, a young man on his way now to international riches. Frank Bruno, what do you make of all that?
He showed, he came out very slick, using his left hand all the time against Gary. Gary was just looking for the big punch all the time, and he was just looked very sluggish, like he'd been in a 6-round fight previous to that, Harry. But he couldn't take nothing away from Lennox. 14 fights, British, European. You can't give him respect, Harry. Give him respect.
A lot of potential there too, I think.
Yeah, you could say so. Right, he's got to calm himself down and his aggression coming in and that sort of thing. But he done very well, Harry.
Sort of fighter you'd fancy taking on?
You never know, Harry. You know what I mean? I'm not going to give nothing away, but you never know.
No, I knew you wouldn't.
You never know, Harry.
All right, Frank.
What a fight it will be, Harry.
It would that. You draw a few bob with that one.
You can say that again nearly as much as you, Harry.
Oh, that'll be the day. So the scenes at Wembley mark the rise to stardom of a new man, Lennox Lewis. I have to say that in the several years I watched him as an amateur winning gold medals in the Olympic and Commonwealth Games,
have it taped.
I always felt that he might one day really become a great professional. He hadn't made quite as much progress as we thought he should, but tonight he's proved himself. Now, let's hear from Lennox Lewis. He's up there with Jim Neely.
Well, I'm not...
Lennox Lewis, a double champion now, perhaps your best professional performance so far?
I wouldn't say. I'm never pleased with myself. You know, I still have a lot to work on. But I was just taking my time boxing. You know, he felt he was hurting me with the body shots, but I was just soaking him up and preparing myself to come back.
Did everything go according to the plan that you actually conceived before the fight?
Yes, it did. I have to give enough respect to Gary Mason. You know, he's really good. And I feel really good about my performance. I'd like to thank all my coaching staff, Courtney Shan, you know, Harold Knight, John Davenport, everybody involved with my training. And Frank Maloney as well.
At one stage, an awful lot of people said you might not have been advised to actually mix it with somebody who could punch as hard as Gary Mason. He did catch you one or two times. How much effect did they actually have?
They didn't have really that much effect because he lost a lot of weight. I feel that took a bit of power away from him. I think he was surprised the fact that I would stay with him. I was watching Gary Mason last couple of fights, and he's been boxing against cruiserweights and knocking them out. But this is a real heavyweight he's up against. So, you know, of course I'm supposed to soak up the shots. Yeah.
When his right eye went in the early stages, I mean, how much pressure did that actually take off you and perhaps put on him?
It put a lot of pressure on him because I said to the reporters before this fight, as soon as he feels me hitting him in his eye, he's going to think about it and it's going to affect him mentally. And what he tried to do was try and get me out of there as soon as possible because he felt that his eye was going to go.
Now, 2 titles, how close are you to the one that you really want?
Well, I think I'm a long way still, and I still have a lot of small goals to go after, like the Commonwealth Champion and the Canadian Championship.
So a few more performances like that and you feel you'll really be ready?
Yes, I do.
Well done again.
Thank you very much.
Glenn McCrory, the Lennox Lewis victory that you predicted, but from Gary Mason's point of view, brave but sad night for him.
He tried very hard. He looked outgunned from the very beginning. Lewis started the fight very well, but he seemed to tire in the end, made pretty hard work of it and had to rely on Mason's eye getting banged up. And I think the job was done right, and the fight was stopped. Mason has had trouble before, and his eyes look very, very bad. So it was a good, it was a good time to finish there.
So what really did we learn about Lennox Lewis tonight? He started, as you say, very relaxed, and that jab is a fearsome weapon, isn't it?
He's got a very good jab, but other than that, he didn't show too much. He showed the odd pick and punch. But me sitting as another fighter, I think I was more disappointed in his performance, and I thought, I thought he would have done better than that. And he looked in the third round to be tiring desperately, which I was very amazed at.
Well, what about his temperament in the ring? There was a certain arrogance about him which almost got him into trouble, didn't it?
That's fair. He showed that. I thought that was a little bit amateur. He's only had 14 fights, and that's something he's got to work on, not to get sort of guided into losing his head, starting to drop his hands. I mean, with a good fighter, dropping your hands like that, he's going to get his head took off. So I think he's got to get away from that.
Now, he admits that he's a fair way away from a shot at the likes of Tyson or Holyfield or George Foreman. You're a man who's been in sparring with Mike Tyson. How big is the gulf, do you think?
Well, it's not that big. It's not that big a gulf, but there is a gulf there, and I think there is a gulf there between Lennox Lewis and the likes of Tyson Holyfield. And as I say, it's just a little gap, but it's still there, and I think he still shows the touches of amateurism, and I think he will want more fights himself, and I think he's Campbell won more fights. He's beaten Mason. I was disappointed with Mason. He looked very, very ponderous tonight, very tight, and I think he had reservations about Lewis's punching power. He kept himself very tucked up and didn't get anything off except trying for a big one, which Lewis is too fast for that. So Mason, well, I don't know what Mason's got to do now. Lewis needs a little bit of time, more fight, and hopefully I'm amongst one of them guys who wants to fight.
That's what I was going to say. What are you going to do now? How do you fit into the jigsaw? In theory, you're the #1 challenger for his British and European title.
Well, hopefully, Lewis will have ideas that we can get a fight together. I'm very confident on that performance that I can that I can do something with them. I thought they were very ponderous. You know, I'm a lot faster than them. And tonight's his night. I don't want to take anything away from him, but you know, hopefully we can get something together.
And the heavyweight scene has changed a bit tonight, hasn't it?
It certainly has.
Glenn, thanks very much.